Welcome back to Under the Surface, the talk show where we talk about everything the Bazaar. Mac is finally playable in the Bazaar, and with his release, we have gotten several new lore videos over on the Play the Bazaar YouTube channel. In this episode, we take a look at those videos and try to discover what lore might be hidden under the surface. Welcome back, everybody. And the time is finally here. We're finally about to play Mac. Or, well, when you're hearing this, you probably are playing Mac, and it's beautiful. It's amazing. But today we wanted to talk a little bit more about his lore because the Bazaar YouTube channel just dropped the hardest lore video of all time, in my opinion. And we both really enjoyed it, and we both really enjoyed Mac's backstory. And we've been talking about how we want more lore and more backstory in the game. So I don't know, we thought we would just talk about what we've learned. I guess that's what we're
Essentially,
doing here.
yeah. And, we are trying to piece together scraps of information from across a couple of videos, actually. So, we are trying to establish some sort of, basis on which we can, work.
Yeah, and we've been diving into the lore now since well before the game has really been a thing. So we feel like we, can connect a lot of these pieces together. And if you haven't seen that video, you should pause this one and I'll put a link to it. You should go watch the major lore video first and then probably come back. But we know that Mac, he was sort of I think you described him in one of your phases, a party boy.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best way to put it. He didn't really care about his alchemist studies, and he comes from this line of famous alchemists, master alchemists, I think is what they call them.
Something like
And
that, yeah.
basically, when he was, I assume at the beginning of the video, he is late teens. That's what it looks like to me. He's a pretty young guy, and he does something, assuming with alchemy, and there's a horrible disaster, and his whole family dies, his mom, dad, sister. And at that moment, he changes, he hardens, and turns into this person who his sole goal is to figure out how to fix his mistake and bring them back. Like, he can't let go.
Sort of,
And
yeah.
that's his basic lore.
I mean, it's
But
his motivation, to further him on his journey.
yeah, and I want to say I really hope they add the young Mac like as a skin, because I really like the design of him as a young like party kid.
I mean, the mustache. Oh boy, that's some sleek mustache.
Yeah, he was definitely a ladies' man. That's all
Oh
I'm
yeah.
saying.
Oh yeah.
Something that struck me, they don't really say it outwardly. When I rewatched it, I thought they had said this, but they didn't. I assume they were like super famous, his family,
Mm,
like almost like celebrity types. The
well,
way he's like walking down that aisle and everything, and everybody's greeting him, sort of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. We can infer from the fact that he is, part of this whole party group. It seems a little bit prestigious, and any random person from the street cannot enter that type of party. So you probably have to come from money, and as he comes from this family of master alchemists, and it seems like they have some sort of mansion or something, judging by his board, right? It's rather elaborate, and also the fact that they have this alchemy business, and it is implied that he neglected his studies, so it seems like his parents wanted him to take up the business. I'm not sure how you say it.
Yeah, take over the business,
Take over
the family
the
business.
Yeah, exactly. That was my idea here. So he was meant to be the next in line to be the master alchemist. Alchemy didn't interest him, so he turned to partying. And in the video, it seems like he made a mistake, or like accidentally combined some ingredients which formed some noxious gas or something, because everything went up in green smoke, and I don't know if they suffocated or it was poisonous, so they died from that. But the first thing that came to my mind was the Sebastian Sallow quest line from Hogwarts Legacy, where his and Anne's parents were also some sort of like alchemists, some sort of scientists, and they were also died, but I'm not going to spoil how they died because it's like not really relevant to the story, but okay. So like it felt like some sort of inspiration were taken from that.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of these alchemist storylines involve something similar, like Full Metal Alchemist has like a
Oh yeah.
similar thing. And I don't know. It's like I don't know a lot about alchemy, like the history of the idea of alchemy in the real world, but I assume it's like they've always been. This is sort of like the forbidden fruit is like like raising the dead sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
So
And
I don't know. It's cool.
yeah. Here in the video, they called this a forbidden secret of alchemy, which was formula of life. And apparently, Mac is the only one who sort of studies it. So we can assume that all the other alchemists from the Arcane District sort of follow this, I don't know, the guideline of not touching the necromancy stuff.
Yeah, like an ethics guide type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was gonna say we also know that Mac has found the cure for like immortality, basically, because it shows that he got old and then got basically reversed his aging and is now 500 years old. So
Yeah, yeah, but I'm not sure if that's some sort of potion because in the video the animation sort of shows that he puts on his necklace with this little crystal and the crystal glows and he reverses his aging back to being sort of young. Well, maybe middle-aged would be more precise because he's not as young as he was in the very beginning of the video, but like 30 to 40 years old, sort of, I would assume.
yeah, and then you have the Memento Mori item, which is pretty cool looking item
Oh, yeah.
too, since it shows him as an old man, like a portrait of him as an old man. It's pretty kind of goes hard, not gonna lie.
Yeah. Do you remember or do you know who Dorian Gray is?
Yeah, yeah, like the picture of Dorian Gray.
Exactly. So I think this is like clear comparison here between Memento Mori, where like old Mac is sort of trapped, like encased or whatever you want to call it, and regular like real Mac sort of has his youth because of that. Well, because of the crystal, but maybe it's sort of connected. Like he has to wear the crystal and like his picture ages like that was in the novel where
Yeah.
like Dorian Gray didn't age but his picture did.
That's really a really cool idea. I didn't think about it like that. Huh. So this might be a lot to his. This is why we need more lore. Look, we just get these little scraps, and we're sitting here like trying to figure out what's happening. I want to know for sure. I want the Mac Netflix miniseries.
Yeah, there's a lot to discover here, but I think the thing that might have gone unnoticed here is that at the very beginning we see Mark as a party boy, as we have established. So he must have definitely been sort of social, outgoing and all that. Where after his parents, after his family died, he delved deep into his alchemy work and he devoted himself to pursuing this goal. And it's his outlook on life also changed and his whole personality. So right now he's really ambitious, and we might also call him ruthless. And other alchemists seem to fear him because there's this moment where Mark is fighting against this apprentice guy, like this young alchemist, and Mark is sort of intimidating him, and at the same time this young apprentice calls him scary, so it seems like Mark became some sort of a dark figure in this society of alchemists.
Yeah, like the sort of guy you stay out of his. You let him do his thing, and you stay out of his way.
Yeah,
And
he's the only necromancer in town.
he also makes a comment. Mac makes a comment during one of those fights about Vanessa. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it sounded like something like he would train her because he's the only one who he has respect for. She's the only one he like respects like for
Mm,
her goals and everything. And there is a similarity there because she, her father died. Isn't that what happened? And I can't remember exactly the whole lore, but basically like her family died too, and she's trying to sort of like take back her home and get revenge for them.
yeah,
So
their
I don't know. There's a
motivations are similar, though like the way that the tragedy occurred is sort of different because Vanessa's tragedy was sort of from the outside, like it happened to her, whereas Mac's tragedy was sort of his own design.
yeah. And then Vanessa even says that basically somewhere whenever they're fighting in that she sees like magic users as evil or something to that degree. I can't remember the exact quote.
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah.
she magic.
And I guess that's a good moment to actually talk about this, because like the magic was sort of implied, like that it exists, but like there were some sort of, like, I'm not really sure how to put it, but like we could have sort of expected that the magic that was present in the game could have had some other sources, like not necessarily it was like this arcane magic, but like let's say at some point technology can imitate magic, right? Whereas in this video, magic was strictly confirmed that it exists, and alchemy is part of magical law, in like it's one of the branches of magic. And it was said that once it was considered false magic. So I guess maybe during Mac's actual youth, alchemy wasn't considered magic, because like it was probably maybe like apothecary work or something like that, maybe some mixing some potions and medicines and all that. And maybe over the years, like alchemy was perfected to actually perform magic.
That would make a lot of sense. That kind of leads me into something I wanted to mention about the scene where it sort of shows his whole timeline between like when he started trying to find a way to resurrect his parents up to now, where it kind of like skims through the whole thing. And there's a scene where he pretty early on where he makes some sort of political sort of event where he's in front of a podium and there's people next to him.
Oh yeah, yeah, and
And
someone is handing him some papers to sign. So
yeah, so maybe he specifically had like a hand in helping alchemy become like a respected type of magic, sort
it
of.
is possible, yeah. Though that did that then it's all mixed up in my mind. But like, did that happen before he like de-aged himself or before?
I think it was before. I'm gonna look really quick.
Okay,
No, it is after he aged himself, because that sequence starts with him going back like an age, and then immediately he goes and forms this sort of like council with it looks like a Jabalian and then some sort of bird character.
I see.
So
This Dosima character is also like a bird or like a phoenix, I would assume. So maybe it's there's some sort of relation there, or at least species relation.
I wanted to talk about that Zosima character too. We know she's a new Mac, like this Mac skill vendor. And I thought it was interesting because she calls him a young man and refers to him as her most gifted student. So is it not, I guess it's not clear to her that he is like 500 years old. Like that's maybe a secret that he keeps
Hmm.
rather than just straight up telling everybody that.
I guess that could be possible, but if he is actually 500 years old and he studied alchemy all this time, then I would assume that he would be the teacher and not the other way around. I mean, I understand that other alchemists can be at least sort of almost as good as he is, so they can provide some value to him, but like him being a student at that age seems sort of out of character.
Yeah, my like head canon was that he's basically just there to like maybe he traveled to the bazaar to go to this place because they teach something completely new or different. Could
Mhm.
it could even be like he's just there so he has resources to mess with.
I mean, it's stated that he came to the bazaar because his search sort of brought him there, in the sense that he discovered that formula of life is somewhere in the bazaar. So it implies that it wasn't anywhere else. And
Hmm.
we know that he's 500 years old, so he might even be as old as Nufu, but that's beside the point. The fact is that, well, he must have been born somewhere. His parents' alchemy shop had to have been somewhere. And since he only later on arrived at the bazaar, I assume that he must have been, born on some other planet. Like with Vanessa, we sort of assume that Pelago was another planet, but maybe those are all continents or like countries or whatever, and we we just are way off mark. But at the same time, I always feel like they apply that Pelago is a world, Jabalia is a world, and in this case, like he probably also like was brought up on another planet, which we don't know how it was called, but like this sequence that we discussed earlier sort of seems to imply that he was present during whole history of that planet, sort of, because there's also like this quote that he says that I watched cities rise and crumble, so I don't know. So
Yeah. Yeah, I just sort of assumed he was on a different planet, but now that you're saying that, like, what if they're all not on different planets? I'm starting to, like, question what I'm thinking. Because, like, what if Belago is just on the like, they're like, what if the planet of, like, the Bazaar is just, like, as massive as Jupiter or something, and then Pelago's just on the other side and Jabalia is just on the other side? I kinda doubt that because we know there's space flight, and we know
yeah,
that there's stuff on the other end of the galaxy, but
but to be fair, there are things like super Earths, so called, in space, like in real life, like planets that are like 10 times the size of Earth, but like have similar properties that they could sustain life. So
so yeah.
it's one of the
Um,
possibilities.
I also thought it was funny because it shows him flying on like his carpet
Oh yeah.
into the bazaar, and I was like, what if he just takes that thing through space? He just like Vanessa flies her regular old boat into space. He flies on a carpet. There's just no rules.
I mean, Silver Surfer exists, sort of. He uses a surfing board to travel through space, so why not a magic carpet? But we touched upon this Zosima character, so we can sort of assume that she is some sort of a teacher figure for Mark, but also she might be one of the teachers in this Poison Academy that we sort of thing that exists. But there's also like this Eli, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, the lady with giant glasses, and she says,
Yeah.
I can get from Nigredo to Rubido or whatever that was in 60 seconds. Beat that, old man. And I'm not really sure if she refers to Mac in that situation, because I think she would be, because well, nobody else can sort of go to that merchant like regularly in the game. And like if she was referring to this older alchemist, this monster fight, so called, I think you know who I mean, like this guy that who has prism in his hand and he adds
Yeah.
some sort of potions to a cauldron, right? So like that character is probably some sort of a teacher in the in universe, right? But like if we take game as a game, like Eli and that guy cannot really interact with each other, so only time when Eli can say something is, well, directly to Max. So I assume that old man in this scenario is actually Mac. So is she like young and maybe a student of Max at the same time, and she just calls him an old man, or does she know that he is 500 years old and that's why she calls him an old man?
Huh, that's interesting. I mean, she looks fairly young, so maybe it's like she's 18 and he looks 35, so she's like, "You're old."
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. There's also with Zosima or however you say her name. There's another time where she mentions in the Alchemist video that she knows about Mac wanting to bring back his family
Hmm.
too, which sort of also contradicts. I mean, I guess she could know that without knowing his whole story, right? But
I mean, she mostly implies that pursuing this formula of life is morally questionable. But I guess she might not know that he already has some idea how that formula of life works, because she might not know that he is 500 years old and he de-aged himself through this magic crystal.
true.
Like all of those sort of plot lines could be followed in a, as you said, Netflix miniseries. There's a lot of mysteries to answer there, and yeah.
Mac lore is so cool. Like 6 months ago or so, like right before we started this whole talk show, I kind of thought like Mac seems like the dumbest character out of the group, like the one I just didn't care about at all. And now he's like by far my favorite character in the game, and we haven't even played him yet. So, and that's just really the lore is really impressive.
I think the people behind the law, like the law department of Tempo, is putting in hours, and they are trying to actually, do something cohesive. And at the same time, they do not want to, reveal all their cards at the very beginning. So there's some mystery and some intrigue that makes us coming back. And I think, like we talked about this countless times already, but I think the law itself is much broader than what we know, and they are just, fleshing out some parts of it. And when they do, a part of it, like when something is completed, that's when they actually put out a video.
Yeah, I want like the Silmarillion, like the Bazaar Silmarillion with all like the notes and just extra stories, because they've got a lot going. But yeah, none of this is half. A lot of games have like half baked sort of lore that feels like it was an afterthought.
It not necessarily has to be an afterthought, but like if it's not written from the ground up, and you only have the main storyline, and then you have to add some sort of supporting lore for that main story arc, then some things might become contradictory. So the approach of starting from the bottom and just making a world and then populating that world makes much more sense.
Thank you, Bazaar Lore Department.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments below how you feel about Mac. Do you support his fight to find out how to bring back his parents and his sister?
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, and additionally, tell us how the Mac gameplay is, because you'll have like 2 whole days to play him. As we are recording this on Monday, right? So please tell us how the Mac is, so we know if the wait was worth it, essentially.
Yeah, and like and subscribe, and we'll be back here on Monday.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Or on Nunhead's channel, but
Yeah. Bye.
see you.